Trick number 1. When you use a noun, use an adjective or several adjectives. Here's an example of a good response to describe this image here. In this image, I see a boy playing. He is wearing a t-shirt and he is holding a toy. In the background, there is a fence and a tree. This is a perfectly fine response. It talks about different aspects of the image. It doesn't have grammar mistakes. This would have a fine score on the test. However, if you want to get a high score for picture description questions, this response is not going to be enough. To make it better, the first trick you can use is to add adjectives for all of your nouns. Here's what I mean. In this image, I see a young, healthy boy playing. He is wearing a dark blue t-shirt, and he is holding a small yellow toy. In the background, there is a wooden fence and a tall pine tree. Just by including some adjectives with my nouns, I added a lot of advanced vocabulary and I added great depth to my response. And all of those adjectives are going to add 15, maybe 20 points to my score. When you are adding adjectives, it's important that you pick adjectives that are appropriate to what you are describing. So at Arno, we see that many students will just start throwing in advanced adjectives that they learn to describe anything. And this is not good because this will lose you points on the test. So I will show you an example. Here is our good response again. And here is what many students will do to try to make it a high scoring response. They will add adjectives like this. In this image, I see a magnificent boy playing. He is wearing a stunning t-shirt and he is holding a delightful toy. In the background, there is an ecstatic fence and a joyous tree. So you may think, wow, this response has so much advanced vocabulary. All of those adjectives are so advanced. However, none of those adjectives are appropriate to what they are describing. So there is nothing magnificent about this boy. He's not wearing a stunning t-shirt. His t-shirt is normal. The toy he's holding isn't delightful. And in the background, the fence is not ecstatic. A fence can't be ecstatic. And a tree can't really be joyous. So this would be a bad response, even though it has advanced adjectives. It's important that you use adjectives that are realistic and appropriate to what you are describing. Tip number 2, describe the location of things. Here's a good response to describe this image. In this image, I can see some people walking. I can see a train and some bicycles. But here's how we can use this trick of describing the location of things to really increase the score for this response. In this image, I see some people walking in the center of the frame. In the background, I also see a train. On the right-hand side of the image, there are bicycles. So all I did was I added a description of where things are located in the image. This allowed me to better describe the image and to use more advanced vocabulary like center of the frame, background, right-hand side of the image. To get help with learning vocabulary like this, check out our other video. But let's make this great response where we describe the location of things even better by also using the first trick that we learned to include adjectives with our nouns. So here would be an amazing response. In this image, I see some pedestrians walking in the center of the frame. In the background, I also see a shiny metallic train with blue accents. on the right-hand side of the image, there is a row of bicycles. So by adding description to my nouns, I was able to expand my answer, use more advanced vocabulary, and better describe the image, so this response will get a very high score on the test. It's great that you're watching this video to learn tricks that will help you get a higher score on picture description questions, but to really improve, you need to practice. And the best way to practice picture description questions or any question type for the DET is in Arno. For free, you get unlimited practice questions for every question type. So in Arno, you can browse through all of the questions. You can filter by category, so the content of the images, so you can focus on describing certain kinds of images. And when you answer a practice question with credits, then you will get an instant estimated score, as well as a breakdown of how much advanced vocabulary you are using, so you can see how much you can improve. Then Arno will point out your grammar mistakes and invite you to correct them. If you don't know why something is wrong, you can look at the answer and ask Arno to explain why. So it's like having a private tutor right there with you. Arno will also highlight ways that you can improve your word choice so that you can use more advanced vocabulary to get a higher score. Arno will even rewrite your entire answer to make it sound like a native speaker wrote it. And you can even view other people's answers to get inspiration for your own response. So all of this feedback, all of these features will really help you to improve at picture description very quickly and to practice with these tips that you are learning in this video. So just head over to goarno.io to create your free account and check out some of these advanced features to see if there's something that you like. Okay, let's get back to the tips. Tip number 3, use lists. So here's a good response for this image. This image depicts a store. It is not clear what kind of store it is. There is also a truck. So when you're describing an image, you will often be uncertain about what something could be. And you may think that that's a problem, but that's actually an opportunity to score higher. Here's what I mean. And this image depicts a store. It's not clear what kind of store it is, but it could be a coffee shop, a flower shop, or maybe a grocery store. There is also a truck. So you can see, I didn't know what kind of store this is, but instead of viewing that as a problem, I used it as an opportunity to list out what the store could be. That way, I could use more advanced vocabulary like coffee shop, flower shop, or grocery store. So using lists like this when you are not sure what something is, to list out the possibilities for what it could be is a very easy trick to raise your score. Let's take this great response and combine it with the other tricks we've learned to make this an amazing response. This image depicts a small store with a striking paint job. It's not clear what kind of store it is, but it could be a coffee shop, a flower shop, or maybe a grocery store. In front of the store, there is also a 3-wheeled red delivery truck. So in this response, I use adjectives, I describe the location of things, and I use lists. And you can see how all 3 of those tricks allowed me to expand my answer, include a lot more detail, and therefore get a much, much higher score. Tip number 4, use synonyms and antonyms. A synonym means a word that means the same thing. For example, big and large are synonyms because they mean the same thing. An antonym means a word that means the opposite thing. For example, big and small are antonyms because they mean opposite things. In your response, you can use synonyms and antonyms to use more advanced vocabulary. Here's an example for this image. A good response would look something like this. This image shows a train station. It is calm. The trains are waiting for people to get on. Here's how we can use this trick to make it a great response. This image shows a train station. It is calm, not crowded or chaotic. The trains are waiting for people to get on, so they are not in motion. So really, this trick of using synonyms and antonyms is that if you say that something in the image is something, that's an opportunity to say that it is not something else. So in this example, I said the train station is calm, which gives me the opportunity to say that it is not crowded or chaotic, which are antonyms of calm. I also said that the trains are waiting for people to get on, which means that they are not in motion. So let's take this great response, using this trick of using synonyms and antonyms, to make it an amazing response by combining it with the previous tricks we've looked at. This image shows a modern train station. It is calm, not crowded or chaotic. The trains are waiting next to the platforms. I'm describing the location of the trains for passengers to get on, so they are not in motion. This would get a very high score on the test. All right, the final trick, which you may have noticed me using already in my previous examples, is avoid generic words. So generic words are words that are useful in many contexts. For example, good, nice, person, people, stuff, things, and objects. These are all words that we tend to use, especially when describing photos, because there's usually always people in an image. And there's usually something that's good or nice, and there's always stuff or things or objects. So these words aren't wrong. However, they aren't going to get you many points. The reason is because they're not very precise. Because they can be used in so many different contexts, they don't do as good of a job describing specific aspects of a specific image. So instead of using a word like good, you could use a word like tasty if you are describing food, or talented if you are describing somebody doing an activity like surfing. You could say he is a talented surfer instead of saying he is a good surfer. You could say enjoyable. For example, we had a good meal, or we had an enjoyable meal. You can also use enjoyable for experiences like picnics or concerts or performances. You can use beneficial. For example, you could say that meditating is good for you, or you could say meditating is beneficial for you. Or you could say effective. For example, the medicine he is taking is good. Or you can say the medicine he is taking is effective, meaning it works well. So what you should do is pay attention to your responses and see if you use certain words over and over again. These words are likely opportunities for you to learn more precise synonyms that will get you more points for specific contexts. To keep preparing for picture description, you should check out our other videos, in particular our template for how to write about a photo, as well as our video on the most useful vocabulary for picture description. I'll see you over in those videos.